Hi, this is Darren Long from Hard Money, also Delta Harbour Assets, and I want to welcome you to this week's Hard Money Show. We're going to talk U.S. dollar, currencies, fiat currencies, and gold. Do the fiat currencies of the world have the stay power to last, or are people losing confidence? Either way, gold is going to come out the winner. We're going to tell you why today on Hard Money, so stay tuned.
There are no shortcuts to building wealth today. It takes time, effort, sacrifice, and diversification. But today, diversification means something different than it did in the past. You deserve a more secure way to protect and grow your wealth. At Delta Harbour, we take this to heart. Our mission is to help by inviting you to add physical gold and silver to your wealth strategy. Book a free consultation today and let us show you how to protect and grow your wealth through the ownership of physical gold and silver. Let us show you the Delta difference. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Hard Money. Yeah, we're good to have you along in the show again. Anytime reaching out to Darren and the team, here is how you do that. 1-877-323-GOLD, 1-877-323-GOLD. DeltaHarbor.com. You know that if you're watching us. And welcome to the YouTube podcast presentation. Also on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook at Delta Harbour with the U. It is Scholes here with Darren. Darren, good to have us back, have you back for another week here. And we'll get through as much stuff as we can today. It's been a mental week, but you talk gold and silver fundamentals all the time, pal. Now for over a decade, you've discussed the idea in that gold and silver market. There are four major fundamentals, right, at play. The U.S. dollar value, you got that. Inflation, geopolitics, supply and demand. Let's turn our attention to the U.S. dollar first, and currencies in general, right? What relationship do currencies have with gold? Because especially now in the current climate, geopolitically. Give us some details on that, Bill.
It's a heated climate for sure, but there is a centuries-old connection of gold to currencies, and whether it was the British pound back in Roman days, all throughout the last 100, 200, 300, 400 years, even 1,000+ years, there's always been a tight relationship between the reserve currency of the world, or currencies which had influence, and gold. And right now, of course, the U.S. dollar has been the reserve currency for quite some time, and the relationship between the U.S. dollar and gold has been one that has been ongoing. My 18 years of experience in this business, gold is viewed as a monetary metal. It's a currency reserve. Central banks around the world hold hoards of gold because of its relationship to the reserve currency, the U.S. dollar. And gold has always played an important role in the international monetary system. And there is a relationship between the price of gold and the value of the U.S. dollar, in that there can be an effect on gold prices as the value of the U.S. dollar rises and falls. And typically what we see in larger trends is that if the U.S. dollar weakens, the price of gold will rise dramatically. So governments around the world, especially here at home, the U.S. government will make extra effort to prop up the U.S. dollar by doing whatever it has to do, buy its own treasuries, buy its own garbage, as it does every week. And this has been the trend over the last decade plus, while gold has been in hibernation somewhat. But since 2020, John, that's all changed. That relationship has completely changed. Gold, where it hit its low, has now broke out into a brand new bull market. And of course, against the U.S. dollar, which has done very little or next to nothing in terms of growth against a basket of world currencies, other than maintain itself, gold has grown against it in value tremendously. So gold is also a store of value, and it's also used by central banks to back their foreign reserves. This is a game changer when you consider what is happening now in Ukraine with Russia, John, for sure.
Yeah, you mentioned Ukraine, and it's this year. You can't turn on any TV anywhere without seeing updates about that. Do you think with what's going on there, gold purchases expected to ramp up even further?
Well, I do. Russia had more than 2,000 tons of gold at the end of January, according to data from the International Monetary Fund, which monitors central bank holdings, which accounts for just over 20% of its total reserves. So that includes all the different types of currency it holds, all the different types of treasuries and bonds and everything. Of its reserves, 20%, just over 20%, are made up of pure gold. And it's the fifth biggest. Russia is the fifth biggest sovereign gold owner globally. And again, if you look at central bank buying, what hotspots geopolitically tell us is that regionally we get a ton of central bank buying when conflict occurs. And central bank buying has been a key source of demand for gold bullion in the past year, alongside a revival and appetite from other less high demand areas such as Asian jewelry consumers and so forth. But central banks added around 463 tons to reserves in 2021, which is an increase of more than 80% in terms of their buying from a year earlier. And that was according to the World Gold Council. So when we look at geopolitical topics, right at the very forefront of that is this Russia-Ukraine altercation, this war that's occurring there, and all of the political divisiveness that we're having around the world is definitely a key ingredient in why you're seeing that type of buying ramp up. Here at home in Canada, our clients are ramping up. I mean, this has been one of, and it's only a few days into March, the busiest months for the first 3 or 4 days that we've ever experienced in history. And last month was the largest buying demand that we've experienced in 18 years. And when you issue sanctions around the world by central banks and by the power holders such as the U.S. Federal Reserve and the U.S. government, when they issue sanctions against countries like Russia, this creates real big discussion about what the purpose going forward will be and how it works. And these are unprecedented times. So central bank buying is enormous right now, John. So we're seeing it. And as it relates to the world stage, also gold is being bought as a way to protect and diversify holdings of different countries, because they know at the end of the day, there is only one universal currency in the world, and that is gold, John. So ultimately, that's why they hold it, because they can be trusted. You can use it as leverage. You can hold it in other banks around the world, as many central banks did throughout the last number of decades, in placing their trust in places like the New York Federal Reserve to hold and store bullion for them on their behalf, which has really flipped back as they repatriate their gold, as we've discussed in the past. But ultimately, this is a very precedent-setting moment. And as it relates to investors, John, now is the time to own gold, to diversify your own wealth strategy for sure.
And that phone number anytime, it's always wise to reach out first on the phone, talk to Darren, or remember the team. Just get educated, right? Have a chat. There's no commitment. Just learn a lot more. 1-877-7323-GOLD is the way to do that. But you mentioned just purchasing, getting your feet in the water as far as this investment's concerned, Darren. What are the options as far as buying gold and starting that part of your portfolio up?
Well, John, our firm is a little bit different than others. We like to create relationships with our clients, ongoing question and answer based relationships. And we like to provide answers. We like to give them guidance in terms of articles and documents and ongoing research about the markets. And we give them both sides of the coin, good and bad, up and down. We're there on both sides of the coin when it comes to gold and silver. But the easiest way to get involved, John, is just to go to the website, and you can make a direct purchase, deltaharbor.com. It's Harbor with a U. And if you want to bring home gold or silver anywhere in the world that we deliver, we offer delivering to, we're delighted to work with you on a one-to-one basis. You'll have 2 account brokers on every account, and you can buy gold and silver and just get it home, get it in a safe spot, put it in your safety deposit box or in your vault at home. Of course, you can store it with us. If you want to open up an account, you want to hold a little bit more, it's private, it's secure, it's fully insured, it's in your name, bar numbers included, buying and selling by telephone, and it's very easy to do. And for clients in Canada, if you like the idea of having it in your TFSA or RSP or setting up something for the kids in our ESP, listen, this is freedom by the ounce. This is what we call it. And if you want to put it into those registered accounts, take advantage of the various umbrellas of the tax-free savings account, the deferred tax incentives in the RRSPs, the spousal RSPs. We can put gold and silver in a physical form, both gold bars and coins, and silver bars and coins into those accounts also. And John, last but certainly not least, as we'll discuss ongoing, we have the option of doing the Delta Vault accounts, which is bulk bullion. If you're a buyer and you just want exposure to gold and silver, and you're saying, Darren, Rob, the guys here, we don't really care as a family about whether it's 100-ounce silver bars any more than we care if it's 10-ounce silver bars. We just want exposure to physical silver and gold. We have the bulk bullion accounts, which keep buying down to a minimum over spot and reflect in the fact that they are our most affordable account. And also in those accounts, the opportunity to take your collateral, your physical bullion, and leverage it up to 80%, which is pretty awesome when you're considering a bull run like we're in right now.
Again, deltaharbor.com, as Darren just mentioned, Harbor with a U, and 1-877-323-GOLD. It is just that simple to get that party started and open up that part of your portfolio. We always like to talk about, this will probably be a different conversation than it was a couple of weeks ago for numerous reasons, not only COVID, but also the Ukraine, the raise in interest rates, so on and so forth. It was just announced. But economic direction, wealth strategy, have they changed? Do you think more people looking now seriously at buying gold and silver? I mean, you guys would reflect that, I guess, right?
We would reflect it. Certainly being in the industry and knowing what the demand is like, it is pushing upwards. And again, let's reflect for a moment, because gold is not everything. I mean, gold and silver represent a way to diversify your portfolio, your wealth strategy, but they are not the end all that says all. For some, it will be, but for most, it's just a portion of their wealth strategy, and one that is very, very good to them over the long period of time that we've been in the market anyways. And ultimately, it is changing, John. We've gone in the last year or so accumulating around of all globally managed assets, people around 2% have exposure to gold and silver. That's ramping up like crazy now. At next check, when the World Gold Council is going to let us know throughout the year, and the silver surveys and everything that we get in terms of the data, I would suspect that we're going to be getting closer to 3% and venturing towards 5% by next year. And if we hit that level, John, a good bull market is going to be around 20%. But if we hit around 5%, due to the population growth since the last big bull market of the 1970s, there just isn't enough supply to go around. Gold has to go higher. It has to go 3, 4, 5 times higher than it is right now in price in order to make up for that, as well as silver. It is the most undervalued asset on the face of the earth, as far as I'm concerned. And analysts are predicting, because of numerous problems that you point out, that both gold and silver will soar. I mean, take a look at China, for example. What are they doing as they watch this conflict in Russia and Ukraine and the sanctions that are being levied on Russia? They're thinking, holy cow, what if we just wanted to take a moment to reflect on what we do with Taiwan? You know, that in and of itself is going to ramp up the amount of central bank buying you see of gold. And China has already been noted, as is Russia, for many, many moons now, as looking for alternatives to the US dollar reserve currency, after Western nations have most recently put sanctions against Russia's central bank, and many of the large banks that are doing business around the world, they've been shut down. They're frozen out of the system. And if they can do it to Russia, then they'll do it to other countries. So, I mean, again, this is going to put pressure on the demand for gold and for silver. And I suspect that, yes, you know, as we move forward here, not only do we see geopolitics play a role, but as we noted in those fundamentals, inflation here at home, with inflation reported at 5.1, which is a total, it's complete BS. Street level inflation is closer to 8-9%, maybe more, and in some areas in double digit. I mean, look at gas alone. We're getting killed, gouged. It's not going anywhere anytime soon. If the conflict in Russia lasts as long historically as those types of conflicts have, then we expect that the prices of gas are going to fluctuate dramatically. We could be at $2 a liter. And we were right, by the way. I was right. I made that call eons ago, a year plus ago, saying that by this summer we'd hit 160 a liter, and we're already there and past it, and it's not even summer yet. So what does the driving season do to demand, right? You really think that our government's going to just all of a sudden get rid of carbon tax? Really think they're just going to say, here's a 8-10 cent decrease in the price of your gas per liter, or take away any serious taxes? They're not. So this impacts inflation, and that's another reason why gold and silver are so sensitive to those topics, because historically, as inflation has soared, that threat of inflation has pushed gold and silver prices dramatically higher. in some cases as much as 1,000+% higher in a single run. So I expect that to continue on. And, gold and silver have a history, John, of holding value. The world will flock to gold if fiat collapses, and gold and silver are universally respected. They represent wealth and status. And you know what? This conflict is going to teach us a thing or two about the amount of confidence that people have in their fiat currencies. Will we remain a globally a world which demands the US dollar? Will it stay the reserve currency? We don't know. So in terms of our wealth strategies, these are all reasons why we want to have a little bit of gold and silver in our portfolios today, right now. And now is as good a time and excuse as any to get involved and get in there.
It's interesting too, as you always say, Darren, as we roll on, gold, at least in the form that you guys deal with, it's tangible, it's physical, there's a finite supply. I mean, this all bodes well for people that are going to get into the market, if not for the first time, but securing and raising their position, right? Especially in this climate.
It has, and they've been fantastic performers, John.
Yeah.
If you look at the best alternatives to the US dollar, the euro, the yen, I mean, the fiat currency is not an option anymore. We're going into the DEFCON 5 here, into an area and a new zone that we haven't been in when we look at what the US is prepared to do in terms of sanctions, as opposed to having outright war or World War III. They're going to do everything they can, and we've already seen that this is going to disrupt the banking system. And ultimately, it's going to put an end to some large banking institutions around the world because they can't operate in this climate. And so people are going to see that fluctuate, lose confidence in fiat currencies. And the US is obviously hoping that the US dollar does not fall victim to that change and to those sanctions.
Yeah.
But when you look across the world at China and what they're probably thinking right now, they're going to ramp up their efforts to get rid of the US dollar as the reserve currency or their currency of choice, and try to use things like gold as much as possible, and probably silver, because let's face it, they're both alternatives to the US dollar, and they've worked very well. And ultimately, right now, when you look at the performance of gold and silver, John, the average person is getting, if we go back all the way to 2000, this is 22 years of data, they're getting in most major currencies probably around 9-10%. And that's more than you can ask for. I mean, ultimately, that's what you want, is a store of value. Look at the current state of cryptocurrencies, right? Everybody said, hey, gold is going to be laughable once inflation kicks in, because everybody's going to use Bitcoin as an alternative to the US dollar. Nope. It's down about 9-10% on the year. Okay, well, what about Ethereum? No, down around 20% year to date. Look across the board at all the cryptocurrencies. It's an uncertain technology. It hasn't been refined enough. It's not ready for the main stage. Gold is. Gold will definitely soar here in prices, in my opinion. And there's going to be a lot of reasons for it, but it's going to act as a hedge. And it's something that everyone should have in a portfolio. Do it through Delta Harbour.
DeltaHarbor.com, by the way, is the way to do that. In 1-877-323-GOLD, 1-877-323-GOLD would be the number. So you mentioned, 20, 22 years of looking back. Take us back to like 2004, say that. Compare gold then and silver, for that matter, to where we are now and where you think it's going.
Well, it's a good comparison, because especially on a day like this, gold hit its all-time high in numerous currencies today, including the euro. So this is very important news. But back when I started in this business in 2004, gold was around $380 an ounce back then.
Wow.
And if you said to the average investor, let's go and buy gold, let's put 20 grand into gold, they laugh at you. It was a laughable thing. Now they're not laughing, because they see that the value of gold is, over the long term, been very, very good. Back then, silver in 2004, around $5 to $5.50 on paper. And you know what? Now gold is trading at 1970, right? It's up around 410%. Silver, 25.60 at last check before we started taping here, up around 360%. And if you are listening, think about this. About 90% of those that invest in anything are investing in stocks, bonds, cash positions, in real estate or interest-bearing instruments. Less than about 3%, 2 to 3% are buying real physical silver and gold. And so ultimately, if you're looking for the undiscovered assets, it's not real estate, it's not bonds, it's not treasuries, it's nothing. It's actually... There's another customer. We'll
There you
leave it
go.
in there as we edit.
They've
But
been
it's
listening.
actually, yeah, listen, we leave it in, right? It's been busy, but it's actually one of the most undiscovered asset categories. That is to say, gold and silver in the grand scheme of things. So when people ask, is it a good time to buy? Yes, it's a good time to buy. If you're thinking about holding it for the long term and you're not thinking about day trading, which is not what we want to focus on,
Mhm.
then yes, we love gold and silver for the long term for sure.
You know, it is all gold and silver. You know, some people think this is in terms of being investment grade. Are they all the same? I know we talk about a lot of different things on the show every week, but you know, many reasons to own gold and silver that sometimes have nothing to do with our topics, isn't there? What do you think about that?
Well, listen, that's a big statement in of itself because absolutely there are a number of different ways to as analysts call own gold and silver.
Right.
And most of those ways, John, are on in the form of paper,
Paper.
ETFs, futures contracts, options, different mining stocks and things of that around the world. But the truth is, that's not physical gold or silver. And in many cases, I would argue probably 90% of the time plus, there is no gold and silver. You're just owning a company or you're owning something that has the confidence of the people. And that's it, like a dollar bill. It's not backed by anything. And ultimately, that's why we say if you want to invest in gold and silver, then invest in the physical asset. And at Delta Harbor, we go out of our way to educate our clients about the difference in various forms of gold and silver. What is the difference between LBMA approved gold and non LBMA approved
Right.
gold? Is there a difference? What are the premiums? Why do I pay the premiums? Right? Is storage an option? Why should I store? Can I buy and sell by phone call? All of those things are answered by just a brief 5 or 10 minute call when you get in touch with Delta. And we're delighted to always bring it to people's attentions. I mean, let's face facts. Precious metals have been and will continue to be an inflation hedge and deflation hedge. Okay. So when we get extreme situations, we always see gold and silver perform well. They have a history of holding their value. Physical does. The
Mhm.
world always flocks to gold when there is crisis, like it's doing now. Gold and silver are universally respected. They represent wealth and status, and people are losing confidence in fiat currencies. How much longer can the US dollar remain the reserve currency? Powell said it himself, the head of the Federal Reserve in the US. You know, there'll come a time and place when the US dollar is no longer the world's reserve currency. And while that loss of confidence occurs and continues to grow around the world, what's the alternative, right? It's gold. It's the universal currency. And that's why we tell people every day, this is the reason to diversify your wealth. This is the reason to hold gold and silver. You know, so speak to the people that you trust, speak to the experts that you know, and take care of yourself first. Take care of your wealth and your needs and your family's needs first. And remember, at the end of the day, it's finite. You can't print gold.
Yeah.
There's only so much of it that can come out of the ground, and silver too. And we're nearing the end, not the very front. It's not untapped exploration all over the world, John. It's what we got, and it has to go a lot higher than it is right now in order to protect that and to realize that it's finite. You know, the gold paper players of the world, the central banks that want to influence pricing by using their paper schemes, they are going to die a very slow and painful death over time, and they are going to get caught. And whether it's Lehman Brothers or whether it's Bank of America or JP Morgan have been fined so many times hand over fist for gold and silver pricing manipulation, sooner or later they're going to exit the game because they can't control it, because the average person is going to be buying gold and silver. I'd like our folks listening and the clients at Delta to be ahead of that curve, to be before those clients, to get in before that happens. And that's why we think gold and silver remain one of the most private investments that you can make. And we're happy to bring it to our clients. And we look forward to talking again soon.
You bet. And to reach out to Darren anytime and his crew, do it. 1-877-323-GOLD, 1-877-323-GOLD. Delta Harbor, that's Harbor with you, deltaharbor.com. You can even go right to the e-store now and start grabbing some on your own. You don't even need to talk to Darren to do that, but to get a little deeper into your portfolio, make that phone call. And like they say, have a quick 10-minute chat, get some confidence and feel safe in doing exactly that. So we'll pick it up again next time, our next edition of Hard Money.